Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Well, welcome back once again to the Corner of Truth and Courage. You're listening to Fortress of Faith. This is Tom Wallace. Well, we were ushered into this brand new year with our nation being subject to an Islamic terrorist attack. Of course, you're going to hear a lot of debate, a lot of discussion from different news sources. And, as the information is going to start unfolding of what happened down in New Orleans. And there's some talk that we're probably going to see more and more of this. And our ministry is getting some calls from our listeners asking, what's the real truth about Islam? And so today, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to break down what happened in New Orleans. We're not going to talk about what happened in Las Vegas and all that, because what we're going to discuss here today will deal with any Islamic terrorist act. And I hope that you'll listen carefully to this show and share this with your friends. You can do that by going to our website, fortressoffaith.com. You can go to YouTube, find our Fortress of Faith channel there. You can find our Facebook page and share these broadcasts with your friends. But this, I hope, will be the definitive answer to all the terrorism. And I'm going to open with this title. It's Islam, stupid. It's Islam. Stop trying to complicate this. When we boil it down, the reason why we have these terrorist attacks, it's because of Islam. Islam is to blame for the bloodshed that we've been seeing since before 2001. 9/11 was what woke us up to Islamic terrorism as a nation. But we were being attacked for about 2 decades beforehand, even going back to 1979. The Ayatollah and the taking of hostages in Iran, the terrorism that's been going on throughout the world by Muslims, they're not radicals. Let's be clear there. A radical is doing something that's outside of the norm. However, when a person is actually following the mandates of their prophet and reading of their holy scriptures and simply obeying that, my friend, is not radical. That's just simply being loyal and a fundamentalist to the belief. So we're not going to use the word radical because that would be incorrect. We can use Islamic terms, jihadi. A jihadi is someone who kills in the name of Allah to perform God's will. And in a sense, that's what they're doing, and they're trying to win and earn themselves. What do they get in this? What's the benefit? Well, usually they want to die in this process because they want to win their salvation. The only promise of salvation in Islam is to die as a shaheed. A shaheed is a martyr, performing jihad, killing of the infidel, the kuffar, and winning and gaining for him the 7 blessings. And one of his blessings is that he'll be guaranteed heaven. Now, I won't get into all the 7 blessings of the shaheed because we've got so much ground to cover. And I'm not really going to quote the Quran so much for you. I'm going to teach you a better source. Now, I've been at this for quite some time. I'm the founder of Missions to Muslims. I've been dealing with Muslims for 20, 30 years. I was a missionary overseas. And most of the Muslims that I dealt with were very highly educated, coming out of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. They were good apologists for their faith. And what we're seeing is a blurring of the facts by Muslims because they don't want us to really understand the truth. But I will say this, and it's important for us to realize this. There are 2 Islams. I used to, say there's only one Islam, but I think it's fair to say there's 2 Islams. There's the real and the fake. The fake Islam tells us that it's a religion of peace. And many Muslims, that's all they're being taught. They've been taught and schooled by imams that came, their learning came out of the Ottoman Empire, that tried to reform the religion, tried to leave the sword of Islam, the jihadi, into terrorism and all that stuff back in the 7th century with Muhammad. And they only taught the peaceful, kind, gentler type of passages. And most Muslims, that's all they know. And so when they see jihadi activity, they identify that as fake, false, extremist, and so on there. No, it's actually, they study their Quran. They actually know what the Prophet did and study the hadiths and the life of Muhammad, and they're obeying it. So I want to introduce you to a better source so that we can establish the credibility of what I'm going to tell you. Now, I used to just use the Quran or the hadiths in quoting to Muslims to establish my fact. And they always do this. Well, you're taking that out of context. Now, I'm not, but that's their way of trying to throw water on the argument. And it works, actually, because now I've got to backpedal and I've got to establish context. But I found a better source. And they will never say that these people are taking it out of context. What is it? It's the Sharia law book. The Sharia law book is commonly known for us as the Reliance of the Traveler. A Muslim is on a journey. He's on a pilgrimage. And as he is journeying through life, he needs Allah's law. And he can rely on his pilgrimage, on his traveling, on the law of Allah. And it's called the Reliance of the Traveler. Now, I need to establish a few things. There's over 1,000 pages in this book. But the first pages are the credibility of this book. Now, back in the 1300s, the scholars of Islam came together and they established, they had different schools of madhabs and they kind of created a big meeting and saying, okay, let's establish one consensus of Allah's law that we can all agree on. And this is what they came out with in the 1300s. And it was translated for us into English. And here it has the stamp of the Al-Azhar University. Now, if you know anything about the Muslim or the Arab schools of Ivy League and stuff, this would be the top. When President Biden, his first act as our president, went overseas, and he went to address the Muslim nations, and he went to Egypt, to Cairo, there to the Al-Azhar University, because, this is the place, if you're going to address the Islamic world and get their attention, this is the place to go to. In it, it has their stamp. And here's what it says. We certify the above-mentioned translation corresponds to the Arabic original. Okay, so no one can come back and say, well, you are reading out of a faulty translation. No, they can't do that. The Al-Azhar told us it conforms to the Arabic original. And, it goes on, conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community. Now, this is an important statement. Why? They're telling, now the Sunnis, you got the Sunnis and the Shiites. Shiites are about 10% of the Muslim world. 80% is Sunni. And so this is the majority of the Islamic world and understanding of Islam. Now, I said there's over 1,000 pages in this. But the first 370 pages deals with their religion, deals with their theology, who God is, how he's to be worshipped, the 5 pillars, their articles of faith, and, all the different, things that you ought to do and how you worship Allah. The next 700 pages deals with the government, deals with the law, marriage, and even there's so much in here. I don't have time to get into all that. But it gets into the section for justice. And we get section 09.0, and this deals with jihad. And I'm just going to read it to you right out of the law book. And in it, they will first define the law, and then it will establish the context of why it is a law. So first, they'll either quote Muhammad himself, or they'll quote the Quran. The Quran is where we get the words of Allah, And the hadiths are where we get the words of their prophet, Muhammad. And so they'll quote them to establish this is what God has said, and this is what we do. So in section 0909.0, it says jihad means to war against non-Muslims. I'm pausing here for an effect. Okay, to war against non-Muslims. Are there any non-Muslims listening here today? Yep, they're to war against us. It is etymologically derived from the word mujahada, signifying warfare to establish the religion. Then it will give the scriptural basis for jihad. And it says, the scriptural basis for jihad, prior to scholarly consensus, is such Quranic verses. And then it will quote 3. It quotes Surah, which means chapter, Surah 2, 216, Surah 4, 89, and Surah 9, 36. And so it says, fighting is prescribed for you. Slay them wherever you find them. Fight the idolaters utterly. So if you're not a Muslim, they are commanded to fight. Then they quote the prophet. And here's what Muhammad said. I have been commanded to fight people until they testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and perform the prayer and pay zakah. If they say it, they have saved their blood and possessions from me. And it quotes another hadith of what the prophet had said. To go forth in the morning or evening and fight in the path of Allah is better than the whole world and everything in it. Then it gives details concerning jihad. Details concerning jihad are found in the accounts of the military expeditions of the prophet. Now, there were 66 battles in the Quran. All but 2, he's the aggressor. He's the one going out to fight and slay and steal and pillage and so on there. Then you get who's obligated to fight. Point 4. Those called upon are every able-bodied man who has reached puberty and is sane. Then it gets in, what if you're not an able-bodied? Then you're to give so that the able bodies can go do it. Then the objectives of jihad. Point 8, the Caliph makes war upon Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians. These are 3 groups of people that are found in the Bible. Zoroastrians, people who followed Zoroaster. They're mentioned in the Old Testament and mainly live around Iran and Iraq area. Provided he has first invited them to enter into Islam. So to make war on Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, provided they have first invited them to enter into Islam in faith and practice. And if they will not, then invite them to enter into the social order of Islam by paying the non-Muslim poll tax, which is jizya. We don't have the time to cover that in today's broadcast. Which is found in Surah 929, but then it goes to quote that. Fight those who believe not in Allah, nor the last day, nor that which has been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, even if they are the people of the book, until they pay jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. That's Surah 929, the most popular verse in the Quran. Why do Muslims kill and murder? It's because they're commanded. They're doing God's business. It's Islam, stupid. And when the plain sense makes common sense, look for no other sense, else you're going to be left with nonsense. That's it for today. Join us again tomorrow at the corner of truth and courage. God bless you.